Yes, you can. Shalom, everybody. This is Gidon Ariel, and that is Pastor Al Latta, who's enjoying his dinner or breakfast or lunch. I'm not sure what. Maybe leftovers from his Christmas party. I'm gonna have to talk this whole time while you chew. Is that the way this episode works? Amen. You're on mute.
Shalom, shalom. I just finished my breakfast.
Shalom. Well, you just feel right at home, Al. You and our million viewers. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm fine. I was at the dentist today. My tooth hurt a little bit. You know what time my dentist appointment was at? Tooth hurty. Boom, boom.
Oh man.
I forgot to mention that to the dentist. He would have liked it. Yeah. So, no, what are we up to? What's going on?
Well, we're going to close the church offices next week. So this week's kind of getting finished for that. So we print a bulletin for each Sunday. So we'll print two bulletins for Christmas Eve and for New Year's Eve. So, yeah.
How many people does the bulletin go out to?
We print 80 bulletins. They're handed out at the service,
Very nice. Very nice.
announcements for the week. And so, yeah. So things like that.
Okay. So that's what you do during the week. You print the bulletin. I'm sure there's more done there.
That's one of the things.
Yeah, we have a bulletin in our community also. We have about 100 families,
Okay.
and so everybody gets a bulletin. I think recently they said if anybody prefers to get a non-printed just PDF to just tell us. And I must have responded somehow, and so we stopped getting the bulletin. I said, "Come on, give me the bulletin for God's sakes."
Yeah, we give it to
So
them
they
both
started
ways.
giving it to me again.
Yeah, we give it to them both ways. So whether they want it or not. Yes. So I have a couple questions.
I'm happy to hear them.
Get the Orthodox insights. The first one's not a big question. It's just something I didn't realize until recently. Moses encounters the burning bush, God speaking to him, and he prepares to go. And in Genesis 4,
Genesis 4,
yes, Exodus 4, sorry.
Exodus 4, yeah.
Exodus 4. My other question has to do with Genesis 15. So he told him to tell Pharaoh that Israel is my son, my firstborn. And I say to you, let my son go that he may serve me. But if you refuse to let him go, indeed, I will kill your son, your firstborn.
Yes,
Now, this is before there were any plagues.
that's right.
Here's a prediction of the Passover plague.
Yes, of course. That's
Yeah, I just didn't
the old
realize.
the old smoking gun in the first act.
Yes, yes, right there. How did I miss that?
Oh, very clear. That's 4, you say.
Yeah, 4 in the New King James is verse 22, Exodus 4.
Very interesting. I'm looking now. I use the Koren Bible,
Okay.
and I might have mentioned to you here. Let's take a look at the page before. Can you see the space over there, right?
Yes,
Can you
that's a
see the space over there?
new paragraphs.
Yeah, let's call them paragraph here. I just opened up to any old place in the Bible. There's a
Yeah.
space, there's a space, there's a space, there's a space, there's another. So this is the way that this is a much more traditional, a much older tradition of breaking up the text.
Yeah.
Now, when I looked at the chapter that you were talking about, chapter 3, begins here. Whoops, sorry. Chapter 3 begins here. Now you see it, now you don't. So you
Yes,
see there's a break between chapter 2 and chapter 3. Makes sense.
right.
But then you go, that's a gimel over there. So I knew that was it. Then you go to chapter 4. Can you see that letter over there? Where is it?
The
Yeah,
biggest.
right there. There. That's a letter in the margin. That's a dalet. That means 4, chapter 4. But notice this page has no break in it whatsoever.
Wow.
And the break ends up only over here. Very big break. Let me see what that is. Surprise, surprise. That is chapter 4, verse 17. The end of it is at the end of chapter 4, verse 17.
Okay.
So if you will look in your translation, you will see that chapter 4, verse 17 is the end of the revelation at Mount Sinai, right at the burning bush. You
Burning
under,
bush. Yes.
you agree with me that the
Yes.
revelation of the burning bush happened on Mount Sinai, right?
I was not aware that that was the case. That's fascinating.
I think so because look, as an Orthodox Torah studying Jew, I sometimes mistake my midrashes with my text of the Bible, but I think it says you will worship me on this mountain. Let me see if I can find this somewhere. Oh yeah, 1 second. You keep looking in English. You will worship me on this mountain.
Okay.
1 second. I'll look it up here on the internet quickly. Second. Uh, yeah. Chapter 3, Exodus 3, verse 12. No, that is I'm looking in the wrong place. 1 second. 12, I said, yeah. Absolutely. Please read
Wow, you shall serve
3
God on this mountain.
right there.
Yes.
So it's very clear. Why did I bring that up? Totally forgot. Anyway, where does all that start? That's why I said it was Mount Sinai. But go now to chapter 3, verse 1. Moses was he was the shepherding his father-in-law Jethro's sheep, etc. And they went and etc. And he went and he saw a burning bush, and I'm going to look at it. And God saw that he was listening, and God called out to him, and he said, "Yeah." And then that's it. So it really starts beginning on verse 5. Verse 5, take your shoes off, holy ground, that kind of thing. So that's where it starts. And the whole, so it starts there. This is the beginning of chapter 3. You see that there?
Yes.
There you go. That's the break.
Yes.
And it ends, like I pointed out before, over here. Chapter 4 begins verse 1, obviously. Frankly, in the middle.
Huh.
Why do we need? And then the end of what the break that I showed you is at the end of 4:17, and then 4:18 begins, and then Moses went and returned to his father-in-law. Clearly, 17 is the end of that passage.
Yes.
Again, chapter 3, verse 1 is the beginning of the passage of the whole story of the burning bush.
Yes.
Chapter 4, verse 17 is the end. There's a chapter 4, verse 18, 19, 20, etc. It's not like they decided to make that the end of the chapter. For some reason, that's not the end of the chapter. And chapter 4, verse 1 begins in the very middle of the whole passage, the whole story. So I don't know why your Christians decided that this is where the chapter 3 would begin, this is the chapter 4 would begin, and this is where chapter 5 wouldn't begin. Chapter 5 only begins way later. As opposed to my tradition over here, which very clearly says, okay, everybody, you can go out to the bathroom, come back because something new is happening. And then when you're done, we're done. And now we're going to start something else.
Yes.
Anyhow, so that's, but I apologize. I just took that in mind. So when you were asking about,
Well, I was just something I just noticed recently, the smoking gun.
yeah, absolutely. No, but
Yeah, fascinating.
but it's much hard. But it is a good question. Again, this is something definitely worth looking into. And we haven't. Remember, if we open up Safaria now, then we'd have about 50 commentaries on that.
Yeah,
But
so Pharaoh,
there were 10 plagues. Why
yeah,
does God only mention the 10th? And why were the 10 plagues? Why didn't he just start out from the one that he talked about?
yeah. Well, he was
That's just
giving warnings.
I'm just pointing a question. I don't have an answer. That's one. There are a lot of questions on this passage, on this whole story, and everything, and that's why we have a lot of commentaries also.
Yeah, Pharaoh can't say no one warned me.
Well,
I
it's
wasn't warned ahead of time.
this whole story of Pharaoh and the plagues and Pharaoh's responses to the plagues are a very, very important point in Jewish theology, if you will, a little bit theology, philosophy, ideology, and that is that human beings have free will. According to my understanding of Judaism, certainly according to the Rambam, Maimonides, the basis of all human existence is free will. If we didn't have free will to follow God's word or to deny God's word, to go against it, then why would we deserve a reward if we did something right, if we had no free will? Or why would we deserve a punishment if we did something wrong, if we had no free will?
That's good.
Right?
I agree.
Like, let's say I come to serve my child some really gross, impossible to eat food. It's just impossible. You put it near your mouth. Ooh, it smells so bad. How can anybody ever get that anywhere near? No. You have to eat that. I can't eat it. Well, then you're going to be punished. What do you mean punish me? There's no way that I can eat it. Let's see you eat it. Nobody can eat that. Or vice versa. You know, I'm commanding you to eat this piece of chocolate. Okay, that's an easy one. How could I not? How could I? I mean, those are just examples that come into my mind. But really, it's a very important concept because the whole idea, or a very important idea of our relationship with God, is that He's commanded us. He's commanding us, Jews. We have 613 commandments, and we have to fight with our evil inclination every minute of the day, whether we're going to do something right or we're going to refrain from doing that right thing. Or are we going to do something wrong? Are we going to refrain from doing something wrong? Or are we going to resist temptation or fall to temptation?
Yeah.
Now, if God would force us built in to either do the right thing or to do the wrong thing or to not do the right thing or to do the wrong, then how can he afterwards come to us and say, well, I commanded you to not eat that apple from the tree? God, you might have commanded me not to do it, but you built in, you programmed me to eat it. I had no choice. How can you punish me for doing something that's like breathing? So that's why free choice is an absolute basis for understanding our relationship with God. Again, I'm sure that people who are fatalists would think otherwise, but I'm in the camp following Maimonides that's saying that it's a sine qua non, it's an absolute basis that we must have complete free will at any given moment. So here we have in this portion, we're a little bit early for it. We're going to be reading this portion in about a month, but in the weekly portions. But God sees that Pharaoh is being, he gives a plague, but then he hardens Pharaoh's heart. You've heard of this phrase, of course.
Yes.
Harden his heart. Harden his heart. What does that mean? God is taking away Pharaoh's free will? Does not compute. So that is the difficult question. And the simple answer that I remember is that is actually a punishment. In other words, at the beginning, Pharaoh had free will, and he made the wrong choice. And they made another wrong choice. They made until he finally made so many choices because now here comes your punishment. I'm taking away your free choice.
Yes.
Anyway, I'm too much of a free choice groupie to really say, that makes me feel good now. No, it doesn't make me feel so good that he could take away somebody's free choice. But I'm just mentioning it because we mentioned that, and it's a very, very important thing, and yet that is very. One of the reasons that it's important, and I think one of the reasons that one of the ways that makes Jews so proactive is because we really believe in our free choice. We believe in our free choice, and that's how come we can help fix the world, and how can we do stuff, win Nobel prizes and stuff like that, because we have choice. We have an ability to do that. You can't keep me. We have no glass ceilings.
Yes. Do you think God can suspend a person's freedom of choice to get their attention? Example, King Shaul was intent on, ending David's life and pursuing him. But one night, in a state of a lack of clothing, he's laying in a ditch, prophesying good things about David all night long. And to me, that was God suspending his free choice to get his attention. And then when his free choice returned to him, he got up, got dressed, said, I'm going to kill him.
Maybe.
So no one can say God did not warn King Shaul. Yeah. I don't know. What do you think of that?
I am not a I can't claim to be such a scholar that I can just pull out my lesson on that passage about King Saul. From what I understand, my understanding of it is that King Saul, he became insane.
Yes.
He was there are other people in the Bible. Again, we know the Torah stories, Genesis to Deuteronomy, a lot better than we know the later stories.
Yes, we all
But
do.
there were people with various mental and physical disabilities or differently abilities in the Bible. one of David's sons, Mipi Boshet, or Ish Boshet, I think that he had two names. He was lame.
Yes.
Okay, so a person who's lame, he some of his free choice is taken away from him. He has no choice he cannot train for the Boston Marathon. Maybe nowadays he can, but different things. And Saul, King Saul, was had mental illness. Clearly, I say. I don't know the whole story off by heart to give you examples, but from what I see, he 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 was way beyond the ability to overcome his own madness.
Yeah. Well, um, he was tormented by spirits, that's for sure. Yeah.
Well, I'm not much of a believer in spirits. Again, I studied in a yeshiva with a rabbi who was one of the world class, possibly one of the top, probably one of the top experts in Maimonides. And that
Okay.
was Rabbi Rabinovich of blessed memory, and he took over the yeshiva from the founder of the yeshiva, Rabbi Yitzchak Shilat, who was no small expert in Maimonides himself. And the other rabbis, they were pretty good experts at him also. But Rabbi Shilat, who I consider or certainly at some points in my life considered my main rabbi, he basically translated Maimonides from the original Arabic. He learned Arabic in order to be able to read Maimonides in the original Arabic.
Wow.
Yeah, crazy stuff. Really, really serious stuff here. Um, so I'm very now. It's not like I'm an outlier. The mainstream Judaism very, very much holds according to Maimonides. People who say, "Well, Maimonides said that, but I don't care. I go according to somebody else." You don't find people like that too much. So Maimonides believed and taught very much about free will, and so we believe in free will. Maimonides was quite the rationalist and didn't. He basically said that if you believe in demons, demons are real for you. But if you don't believe in demons, they're not really real. So I don't really believe in them, so I guess they're not real.
Yeah.
So when you say that he had a demon, you want to call it a demon, you want to call it a uh, a mental illness or something like that.
We can call it a torment. He had
He was certainly tormented. There's no question about it.
and David would play music to soothe him when they first met,
Mm-hmm.
even before Goliath. Yeah,
That's right.
David was that. So do we have time to get into Genesis 15?
Yes, we do.
Yes.
I cut you short last week, so I'm going to give you a little bit more time today.
Thank you.
Genesis,
15.
what we got here? Okay, a lovely portion. Here, for example, this is where 14 starts. 15 this is where 15 starts. This is where 15 ends. See, there's a good break. It starts with a break and it ends with a break. Makes sense. You see that?
Yeah.
So that's an example of where the chapterizing of the Christian chapterizing uh, is in tandem with the more traditional Jewish breaks. Okay, so here we are in verse 15. What's your question, sir?
Chapter 15 of Genesis. God makes a covenant with Abram. He splits these animals, keeps the birds away, and then God puts him to sleep and passes between the pieces as a burning torch. And smoking oven. Could this be related to the pillar of cloud and the pillar of fire leading Israel through the wilderness? God just revealing himself in these two unique ways and making them these promises. Um, so my question is this a completely out of the blue practice, or was this something that was understood by the people of the culture of that day that God was connecting with to communicate his promises?
What an amazingly great question.
He
First
passes
of
between.
all, let me see that verse that you were talking about. This was after he promised him he took in verse 13, he told Abram, you should definitely know that your nation your seed will be strangers in the land 400 years, and then I will go out and you will die in an old age, and the fourth generation will come back here. And then in verse 17, and then the sun came up and a darkness came around, and it's like a big oven of sorts full of smoke and a torch of fire between the two parts that are broken, that are split. So you asked them, is this first of all, you mentioned that this brings to mind the column of fire, right? What did you say?
Yeah,
That
cloud and fire in the wilderness as they were
cloud
going.
and fire in the wilderness that led the Jewish people over in the desert for 40 years.
Yes. Is
I
there?
would be very surprised if no classic Jewish commentator noticed that. Did you find that anywhere else, or that just jump out to you?
No, no, just reading. I sometimes see parallels, and sometimes
Beautiful,
I see things
beautiful.
that aren't there. But so it's significant that God passes between the pieces,
Yes,
sealing the deal. He's making a covenant with himself. This is why he's never going to break his promise to Abraham.
beautiful. Oh, beautiful, beautiful ideas. It's true. Usually, it's two people that make a covenant, but Abraham here is significantly passive. He's asleep even.
Yes.
Again, I'm not spending time to go specifically into the verses, which is the right way to study, but we both know the verses enough to
Yeah.
maybe go a little bit to the side. But what you said about, was this the way that people would make covenants? So there's two things. First of all, the traditional way of studying is look inside the Bible, and if Abraham made covenants in a certain way, then that's the way it was done. So, however, so for example, when Abraham made his servant Eliezer, he's not mentioned as Eliezer in that portion, but swear that he would not find a wife for Isaac from the residents of Canaan. Rather, he would go back to Haran, where his family lives. And he made him swear. He made him take an oath. And he said, "Put your hand under my thigh," or something like that, right?
Yes.
So the
What was
way,
that?
pardon me.
Yeah, go ahead. That's
So the way that I learned this, the way that tradition, the classic way of understanding this, is that Abraham had a commandment. His command at that point, he had one commandment, and that was to circumcise. So really, a commandment is a bridge between God and man. If I am commanded to sit in a sukkah, to sit in a booth on the festival of booths, so the booth is not only a symbol, but it's the actual thing of that commandment. So it's holy because it's from God to me. It's we believe that God is incorporeal. He has no body, so I can't touch God. I can't feel God. But here is something that is connected to God. It's a holy thing. So it's so in Abraham's time, he only had one commandment, and that was the commandment of circumcision. So when he wanted to put Eliezer on the stand and to when you go into the to stand in the court, put your hand on the Bible and you swear because it's something holy. It's obvious. But there was no Bible in Abraham's time.
Right.
So what was there? There was only the commandment of circumcision. So he said, here, put your hand. It's a little hard for us to not smirk, but he said, put your hand there near my circumcision, and because that is a symbol of God, symbol of God's holiness.
Okay.
So that is the way that you do an oath. You do a covenant. So over here, to put things on two sides and to put something in between, we saw that earlier with Abraham and I think it was earlier, maybe it was later. I think it was later actually, with Abraham and no, Abimelech. Abimelech, if you maybe. In other words, he was the king of Egypt or the king of Gerar or something like that. And he said, okay, listen, I don't want to fight anymore. Let's make a covenant. So Abraham brought the 7 sheep and he put them on the side, and he cut them up or something like that. Let me see if I'm not getting it totally wrong. One second. What have we got here? Yes. So in chapter 21, verse 22, and it happened in that time that Abimelech and Pichol, his chief of staff, they came together and said, listen, they came to Abraham and said, wow, I see that God is with you. So let's now make a covenant that you don't lie to me or to my grandson, and we'll be friends. And so Abraham said, okay, I'll swear. I'm in chapter Genesis 21, verse 25. And then he said, there were whatchamacallit, wells that you stole. Well, let's skip over that part. And then on verse 27, Abraham took sheep and goats or something like that, and he gave it to Abimelech, and they cut a covenant. And he put the 7 sheep to the side on their own. And so Abimelech said, what are those 7 sheep over there that you put on their own? And he said, because you will take these 7 sheep from me, and that they will be a testimony that I built this well, and that's why they called the place Beersheba, the 7 wells, and 7 and swearing is the same word in Hebrew. So it's the 7 of the sheep and the 7 of the swearing. Anyway, so you put animals on the side, and so that's what they did over there. So that is the first answer to your question. The fact that they did it in the Bible means that they did in those days. However, we are lucky, we are blessed that in the past few hundred years there have been studies that academic, usually archaeological, or they found texts from other cultures that were in the same time as Abraham or earlier. And we see, what do you know? We were doing the same thing. Words that we've heard of, but I can't remember any of them. But you know what I'm talking about. The fact that we have a Bible and we understand this Bible this book of Genesis to be written by Moses. So again, these stories it tells are of the time of Abraham, but it was only written down as an authoritative Bible in the time of Moses. So Moses lived what, about 4,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, something like that, 3,500 years, something like that. But then we find a text from about 4,500 years ago, or even the same time, somewhere, something here in Israel, or east of us in Babylonia, or in Greece. You find texts that there was the stele, S-T-E-L-E. What was it called? The Mason stele? I don't remember. Hold on, let me take a peek at it 1 second. The stele of Hammurabi. Not
Hammurabi.
familiar? So Hammurabi. We didn't learn about Hammurabi in the yeshiva, but you have to be blind to not, come across the name Hammurabi. Look him up on Wikipedia a little bit and say, what do you know? He said things that are very similar to Moses. Okay, so that is a question of like, wait a second. I learned that the whole Bible is like it. Moses had God. Everybody else, they were up on the trees and they didn't have anything. It's not so simple. The Bible itself talks about that fellow who was the priest, the high priest that Abraham came to. You like him. The Christians like him. They consider him a
Beta.
sorry, Melchizedek. Melchizedek, yeah, Melchizedek. How do you pronounce it? So the Bible says that he was a righteous king. I'm not talking about the Christian tradition. The simple meaning of the text is that he was a righteous king. He was a king to God. So he didn't exist. It says so right there in your Bible. Do we have a text of Melchizedek of his time? No, it didn't survive. Probably the guy was able to write. He was not illiterate. But we have no text of his. Hammurabi, on the other hand, we do. I don't know. Maybe according to some people, Hammurabi was Melchizedek. I don't know. I have no idea. I just stopped. But when you asked, was that a tradition that was well known in that time? My answer is maybe. It's fascinating.
Yes.
There are now more and more Orthodox Jews. When I say Orthodox, I mean really Orthodox, i.e., people who believe in the standard what we believe in, that Abraham existed 3,500 years ago, and that Moses wrote the Torah, and that David was the king in Jerusalem. All the things that modern academics like to poo-poo and say, all that stuff is just a bunch of myth. No, I believe it in true faith. So today you have people who studied in universities, who are even teachers, who are professors, and who are the heads of Bible criticism, as it were, departments, but they are Orthodox Jews.
Yes.
Very interesting. And I'm sure you have that amongst the Christians also. So there is a website called thetorah.com. THE, of course, Torah, Torah, Torah.com, which collects hundreds of Orthodox scholars that try to bring together traditional Jewish scholarship together with non-traditional academic scholarship, and try to bring these two things together and try to understand them together. So that's fascinating. So you can look up that website. One of the contributors to that website is the head of the Bible department at Bar Ilan University, which is an Orthodox university, but it's a university, so nothing is off limits for them. And he recently wrote a book called I Believe. and it's what he believes, and how he connects or how he deals with what seem to be contradictions between the academic world and the world of study of different cultures of thousands of years ago, and what we understand from Jewish traditions. Fascinating stuff. My neighbor just got that book. He's actually studying with him, Rabbi. His name is Rabbi Dr. Joshua Berman. Joshua Berman. So you might here, I'll assign you to find that book and to read it and then tell me about it.
Awesome. So, the concept of obedience being a bridge, in obedience, this was before circumcision. In obedience, Abraham killed these animals in Genesis 15, and that being a bridge, God walked through the pieces, between the pieces, when he made the promise.
There you go.
Pretty cool.
Let's see. Abraham was commanded about the yeah, that was before it.
Yeah, his name wasn't even changed yet.
That's right.
So up to this point, the promises were made to Abraham. At least that was clear to him. Whether or not they was made to Sarah was not clear to him. So the Hagar Ishmael thing, correct?
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, something worth looking into for sure.
So the promise of the land from the Nile to the Euphrates being given to his descendants, through, if you look at all of his descendants, that's been fulfilled. But the promise to Isaac is where all the conflict is. I don't know. What do you think? Is that blasphemous?
You're not going to hear me talking about blasphemy, or
Okay.
I'm not worried about that kind of stuff. But it's hard. Let's put it this way: if the Bible makes certain messages a bit fuzzy and unclear. In other words, if we say this Bible here is the story of how God chose the Jewish people, and that's it. The beginning and the end, that's it. But then you say, wait a second, if we read all about and Esau was a horrible person, and Ishmael was a horrible person, all these terrible enemies on it. But then you read it just with the pshat, just with the simple meaning of the text. You say, wait a second, where does it say that? And like you're saying that God said to Abraham, don't worry, Ishmael will also be a great nation. So it's a good question, I think. In other words, to reread the Bible without the heavy, the word baggage sounds a little bit negative, without the heavy understanding of traditional Judaism saying that the Bible is the book of the Jewish people, and Ishmael exemplifies ultimately the Muslims, and they were pushed away. This is the traditional rabbinic Jewish understanding of the Bible, and anybody who doesn't accept that nowadays will get an eyebrow raised pretty much everywhere. Not accept it. Not accept it. Question it. Say, listen, this is what it says in the Bible. What do you want from me? It says in the Bible. Well, you have to read Rashi on that. You have to read the commentary on that. If I had to read the commentary, then why didn't God write it in the Bible? Why did he make it so ambiguous? That was the word I was looking for earlier. I will we'll leave it at that. In other words, I don't want people to say, "Oh my gosh, Gidon is a blasphemer." But I think that God wants us to grapple with the text. I think that just the same way that the Jewish people's name is Israel, and Jacob was renamed Israel, and Israel means that you struggle or you wrestle with God. So
Yes.
today, to wrestle with God, at the very least, I think, means to wrestle with God's message. That's the Bible. In other words, if you just take the Bible, say, okay, anything that seems a little off to me, I'll just forget about it. I don't understand. I'll accept the rabbis, what they understand. I'll say, wait a second. I want to grapple with this with some more. I
Yes.
think that's very important. I think that ultimately, listen, there's a bit of a danger that if you grapple with something and say, I don't like the way this looks, the hell with this, I'm just throwing it all out. You throw out the baby with the bathwater. No. But unless you do grapple with it, you're not going to come to anything clearer. If I say something to my family, to my kids, and they say, Dad, Abba, you just said such and such a thing. I said, well, I didn't mean that exactly. I meant this. Okay, in other words, be a little bit clearer in what you have to say. The same thing with God and with the Bible. It's not the same thing because when God wrote something in the Bible, that's what he meant. He didn't mean to say, well, I only said that, I didn't mean it. No. God meant every word. So we have to try to understand what he meant, really. And for that, we have to try to grapple with it. That's the way I see it.
So you think the grappling deals with our character, maybe humbling us so we know we are not know-it-alls? If we have all the answers and no questions, then why do we need God? So in the wrestling, there's some good things.
I'm wrestling with God, wrestling with God's message. In other words, I'm seeing while my teachers and my peers might say, don't ask any questions on that text. Why are you reading that text differently than we all understand it? Well, because God put a brain into my head and eyes into my face for
Yes,
me to read what he wrote because he wrote that message to me.
this is good. Yes.
All of us saying that.
No.
So now I'm not saying that I shouldn't listen to anybody else,
Right.
but I am saying that I shouldn't not listen to myself.
Yes.
If God put a thought into my mind, well, who knows if that's not the thought that now comes out? Listen,
Yeah.
I think that's the way I think. I'm a little bit outspoken in my amongst my friends, but that's I gotta call it the way I see it.
Yes. That's good. Good stuff.
Tell my friend, I think that's enough for this week.
Okay. Thank you so much. We'll
Thank
talk
you
next
very
week.
much, and we're gonna be seeing this on our newsletter. You're getting our newsletter, of course. Yes, we feature
Yes.
you
Thank
from
you
time
so
to
much.
time.
So well written. Yes.
So
Thank you.
daraba. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, shalom, shalom. Have a happy holiday.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye bye.